Sean Goodell with the Mental Edge, and I want to welcome you to another edition of our Mental Edge Live video instruction series. And last week we talked about the importance of setting goals, and I gave you some principles to help you in order to take the next 30 or 60 or 90 days of your focused energy and turn it into some type of accomplishment that would help you be better, not only in your sport, but hopefully in your life as well. Tonight what I want to talk with you about is I want to break down a concept that I think is often misunderstood, but at minimum what it is confusing. And if you watch TV or if you listen to people talk about athletes, one of the things you hear them talk a lot about is mental toughness. And a lot of people talk about a person's ability to, work through things and be confident and overcome adversity. And there are specific skills that you have to train. There are specific rituals and routines that you have to become masterful at if you want to be a mentally tough athlete. And in order to do that, you need to know what they are. You need to know how to think through and how to break down the things that are going on in your life so that you can train yourself to be mentally tough and train yourself to have the kind of confidence that you need. Especially as a competitive athlete, and if you're a competitive person, you need to know how to utilize this great asset that you have called your mind. And when you learn how to use that asset, you actually gain an edge, or you gain an advantage on those that don't know how to use it. So tonight what I want to do is I want to give you an overview, and then I want to give you something specific that you can work on. And I want to start by saying that every time an event happens in your life, if you're an athlete and you're competing, every time an event happens in your competition, the first thing that your mind wants to do is interpret that. It wants to give it meaning. It wants to make sense out of it. And for those individuals that are mentally having a tough time, a lot of times that event, especially if that event is negative or that event is difficult to deal with, the mind then starts to race, and it starts to take that and it starts to do one thing that's always destructive, and it starts to blame and it starts to indict, and it makes you feel like you're really a failure. And you start saying to yourself things like, well, if I keep doing this, then I'm going to not have playing time, or I'm going to be a failure, or I'm not maybe as good as I thought I was. And the more that you start to take that event and interpret it in a negative way, you're starting to form a pattern or a ritual that actually becomes very destructive to you, not only as an athlete, but as a person as well. So the first thing that we do is we interpret the events that go on in our lives. The second thing that we do is we support those interpretations. We support them with thoughts. And sometimes if that interpretation is a negative interpretation, we support that with ongoing negative thoughts. And for many people, those negative thoughts take on the form of fear. That if I keep doing this, then I'm going to lose something. If I keep doing this, then I'm never going to get where I want to get to. And those thoughts start to compound, and they start to create fear, and they start to create anxiety within us. And then that leads us to playing tentative, or it leads us to playing fearfully, or it leaves us just in a state of mind and being where we're not very empowered and we're not very powerful to go out and do the things we need to do in a highly competitive situation. So breaking it down, we start with an interpretation of the event. Then we move towards thinking that supports that interpretation. And then the last thing that we do is we embody the emotion that interpretation and those thoughts have earned us. So if you've taken an event and you interpret it negatively, and then you create supportive thoughts that compound the negativeness of the experience, then you're going to feel just really emotionally sad and depressed and anxious and fearful. And it's going to sabotage your ability to go forward and do the things that you want to do in whatever situation you're in. So, what we want you to do, what I want you to learn how to do, is I want you to learn how to take the events that go on in your life, and the first thing I want you to work on, before you even work on anything else, I want you to work on being aware of what your interpretations are. There are many athletes that go through significant events as an athlete. They go through events as an individual person. And they go through them without any awareness of what their interpretations are. So as they go through these things, their interpretations just take over and their emotions start to be very negative and they don't even know why. It's very, very important that you know why your emotions are what they are. Your emotions are the symbol. They're the final, judge and jury about how well and how empowered you're thinking. If you want to change your feelings, if you want to become more optimistic, if you want to become more positive, if you want to have a greater feeling of confidence, you have to start by mastering your capacity to interpret. So, this week what I want you to do is I want you to pick out an event every day. One event. Whether it's in your competitive situation or not. One event every day. And I want you to take that event and I want you to write it down on a sheet of paper. And then I want you to craft or create 2 different interpretations that you could have for that same event. Now what you're doing when you do that is you're actually retraining your mind and you're giving yourself the ability to be creative about that particular event. When you practice that over and over and over again, you're actually training your mind to be more creative in its interpretation. So that when you go out, and compete again, and an event happens, you'll have some of the natural capacity to frame or to create a better interpretation for the potentially negative things that might go on in the course of your game or your match or whatever situation you're in. And when you're able to do that, you have a newfound sense of power. And that newfound sense of power helps you to be able to take on a whole different posture, a whole different meaning, and a whole different capacity to compete. And it starts with just your ability to interpret what goes on in the course of your situation in a whole different way. So, last week I talked to you about goal setting and using your mind to get clear about the kinds of things that lead you to the results that you want. I hope that you're using your performance journal. Now I hope that you use your performance journal and write down an event that goes on every day, one event. And then I want you to take that one event and I want you to write 1 interpretation, 2 interpretation. I want the 2 different interpretations to be the byproduct of your creative capacity. You may or may not know this, but your capacity to be creative, your capacity to imagine and create all sorts of ways of looking at the same types of things in your life is what gives you an incredible power, and it gives you an incredible capacity to work through and move beyond things that maybe in the past would have slipped you up. So, get out your performance journal. Look at your goals. Make sure that you're following through on the actions that you've already written about. Secondly, now, take events that go on in your life and practice the art of creative interpretation. Use that powerful mind of yours to be able to create the kinds of interpretations that will empower you and to help you be the best when it counts the most. Now, until next week, I hope you have a great week.
Win, no matter what.